everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of Expert Talks organized by Thapar Summer School, where bite sized ideas turn into bold conversations. I'm your host Noor, and I just completed my sophomore year at Thapar. Today's guest is someone I deeply respect, not just because he's worked across some of the most advanced tech frontiers, but because he did it all before it was cool. He's currently a senior data scientist in R&D at Walmart Global Tech, working at the intersection of data science and product innovation and everything in between. He's also a proud member of Shack 15, a place where innovation literally hangs out. His background includes computational astrophysics, yes, the kind of stuff that gives universe a structure, but me an existential crisis. Please join me in welcoming someone who's inspired me through both his work and his journey. Mr. Satish Bhambri, joining us from California.
Hi, Noor. Thanks so much for having me here, and thanks for the amazing introduction. Really, really glad to be here and honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here. I'm genuinely excited yet a little nervous to have this conversation with you today. Well, without a further ado, let's dive right into the podcast. To kick things off, my first question to you is AI is evolving faster than my weekend plans change. What's your take? How's AI really going to shape Gen Z and Gen Alpha's world from creativity to careers?
No, that's a very good question and a very wide one as well. As we all know, like AI is integral to Gen Z and Alpha. As if I were to make a comparison, as internet was to millennials. And the kids, they don't just use AI, but they're co-creating with it, as we can see right now. Think of a teenager, for example, writing a code with a fine-tuned GPT assistant, or somebody growing up but composing music using generative AI. And we see a lot of examples of that these days. In the workplaces, we have like routine cognitive work, which is now being heavily offloaded because of AI. What remains, that is like deeply human, critical thinking, collaboration, ethics. There's still human part to it. Uh, but to put it in perspective, the best professionals, they don't just, or they won't outcode AI, but they will out contextualize it, to put it in that way. So when I think of it, with the examples that's happening right now in the industry that I work in, from how much I have seen so far, creativity is exploding, productivity is exploding for sure with AI. We are seeing AI generate content now, but in the future, our Gen Z or children, they will be the directors of these, multimodal experiences like text, voice, images, all stitched together with an intent. But the biggest change, if you were to ask me, that would be decision making. AI is going to personalize everything from learning paths to daily schedules. The challenge is ensuring that they don't outsource everything to the AI algorithm. So there's one really interesting book with one of my professors who I worked with, and he was the pioneer of AI back in 1991 when he completed his PhD, and that's the year I was born. That guy is Dr. D. Kai, and he just came up with a book called Raising AI. I would highly recommend that. But yeah, it's really interesting times to be alive for sure.
Very well explained, sir. Moving on to the next question. You've seen AI on both sides of the globe, that is India and the US. How do you compare the two in terms of research, industry adoption, and talent development? What do you think India can learn from Silicon Valley, and where does India stand out?
Well, before answering that question, I must say this one thing that India is already like doing really well, especially in tech. So in the US, for example, the AI ecosystem is driven by academic research, which is, of course, the same case in India. But one difference that I feel being in Silicon Valley myself right now, it's the massive VC fundings that we get here, the seamless industry academia collaboration, which is something, well, if I'm not aware of as much, but starting to, like shape up in India as well. I've seen a couple of episodes of Shark Tank India. I mean, they are amazing, to be honest. And I hope it progresses more because a lot of people who I see working here in tech, they are majorly Indians. A lot of them are Indians, if not majorly. A lot of Asians for sure. So adoption of technology there is quite seamless. Um, so I have worked here. I have seen how companies pilot, AI at scale within days, if not months. And that's thanks to, the robust cloud infra that we have, the dedicated AI ethics teams that we have, and the product-minded engineers. And I feel like we got a lot of the similar talent and even better in India as well sometimes, India is a land of, what do we say, a resourceful innovation. And we can see the examples in, for instance, the way or the scale at which India has digitized banking, identity like Aadhaar card, payments, UPI. It's unmatched. Uh, Indian developers, they are incredibly fast learners, often doing more with less. Uh, I feel one of the places to look forward to in India's realm would be deep foundational research and access to compute, which we are getting there, and we might have like even better ones out there. It's catching up with the initiatives now that we have the Indian large language models, right? If I'm not wrong, it's Bhashini, if I pronounced it correct. And government industry partnerships are coming up. So one of the basic India's unique edge here, I would say, the real world data, the entrepreneurial hunger, and the diversity of context. And if we bridge our research output with the frugal, scalable solutions, I mean, India is on the way to become the applied AI capital of the world. I can definitely vouch for it.
Yes, I agree with you. Moving on to the next question. There's a common belief that while AI may replace some traditional jobs, it will also create new opportunities, especially for those who learn how to work with it. However, in recent times, we've seen major tech companies, including Microsoft, laying off their senior AI professionals. How do you see AI truly impacting the job landscape in the next few years? Is it more of a threat or an evolution in the workforce?
No, that's a very good question. And we have seen a lot of layoffs in the tech right now. Microsoft laying off, for example, over 5,000 people in like last 2 months. And the number is increasing. Walmart had layoffs too. Uh, I wouldn't say it's a threat per se from this perspective. Um, Again, you can see any incoming technology or any improvement upon previous human advances as a threat. Uh, when industrial revolution came, right? Of course, there was a lot of new jobs that were created back in the 19th century, but at the same time, a lot of labor that was being done by hand that was absolutely like obsolete at that time. So it's a massive evolution. Fortunately, unfortunately, we are a part of it. Um Professionals like me, we have been in this industry, and there is a chance that a lot of work that we do is being replaced and would be replaced. A lot of more work that would be replaced, by AI for sure. But is that a threat? Probably not, I would say. It will automate like traditional roles, especially in operations and content generation. But it's also creating demand for AI translators. And when I say AI translators, I mean people who understand both domain and the model. The layoffs that we have seen, even in AI-related fields, highlight a mismatch, I would say. Like being skilled in AI isn't enough. Like what we need is a business aligned AI. And I have worked with recently with the building of the RAG agents that is into reporting and uh, enterprise GMV calculations in different roles, like in Blue Yonder and Walmart. And I've learned this one thing. It's not just about deploying models. It's about essentially solving real business pain, and that has always been the case. Technology has always been a supporter for solving the business problems. So yes, AI is a disruptor. It's definitely a bit intimidating for sure, but I would say as we leverage our skills, as we learn more, as we partner with AI, we have an edge. So yes, it has got both the faces to it for sure.
Yes, sir. So you went from Java and Hadoop to LangChain and RAGs, that is Retrieval-Augmented Generation. That's not just a resume, it's a Netflix series. What were some plot twists or turning points in your career that made you go, okay, this is it?
Uh, Yeah, I mean, reflecting back, it's definitely been quite a journey, I would say. I graduated from Thapar back in 2015, and my first role was as a software engineer intern at Sapient Global Markets at that time, and it was acquired afterwards as Publicis Sapient by a French company. But yeah, I started my journey as a backend engineer. But even in Thapar, essentially, I remember AKV Sir and one day reaching out to him because I always wanted to pursue physics. And I was always trying to find, something where I can actually work in the mid of, physics and computer science, like two of the things I absolutely admired. Uh, and I would say, having started as a backend engineer with .NET, Java, and then jumping into the big data technologies, it was definitely interesting engineering work. But there was always this thing that I admired was solving essentially business problems. For me, the tech which I was working with was, of course, a tool, and uh, I think data science and machine learning, my first interactions with it was like back in Thapar for sure. My first paper that was on quantum computation, which I wrote with Dr. AKB Sir and one of the professors I grew up watching on Discovery Channel, Dr. Lawrence Cross. Um, and that's how I ended up, at ASU and in computational astrophysics projects here at School of Earth and Space Exploration. But the common point there was essentially, analyzing large amounts of data, which we deal with in business problems as well at the same time in the core sciences as well, be it medical field or like be it like astrophysics or astronomy. The amount of data is just sheerly enormous. We use quite similar machine learning models over there as well. So this was something that always had my kind of inclination towards, I would say. So I guess the first time, the turning point was when I built up my first recommendation engine using, collaborative filtering, and seeing like, the math directly impacting, decision making in that like really got to me. So over the time, I, shifted to NLP and generative AI, where I'm working right now. And at Walmart Labs, have been working, with the RAG agents, using LangChain, MilVisDB, Vertex AI, Bison GPT models, and some of the most interesting projects, of course, in the industry have been, conversational grocery bot that kind of, understood the taxonomy of our product catalog, ran vector searches, and could interact with people, So this journey's been, from data storage, to data intelligence, I would say, to data dialogue, which is, from big data, Hadoop, Java, .NET to AI/ML, data intelligence, and to data dialogue, which is large language models. And even in astrophysics as well, working on Sigame, which is a model that we now use to uh, ascertain the redshift in the galaxies, and also like dark matter simulations. There's so much of data in the universe which needs to be analyzed right now, and humans are still just coming on part with how to make sense of a lot of things. So it's an ongoing journey, interesting one, and it's always good to explore.
That's really interesting, sir.
Yeah.
You've also dabbled in astrophysics, distributed computing, and quantum theory. What's the thread that ties it all together?
Oh, yeah, I think I touched base briefly on that actually in our previous question, but it's essentially solving problems, right? And how do we foresee problems in our universe? Is we have quantified, uh, certain things. We are these quantifiable quantities is essentially the data. it could be coming from any problem, could be a business problem, could be, again, astrophysics, could be medicine, At first glance, they seem like worlds apart, but to me, like they share a deep psychological and philosophical curiosity of humans, right? Like, what is real? Like, what is our essential existence here in this world? Uh, and one way to explore that is essentially, working with what data we have and how we can make sense out of it. So it's essentially answering questions, using data. And in astrophysics, I've worked on this one algorithm. It's called radio burst simulations, which was essentially, we get all these radio waves from the universe, and we plot out our image of the sky, essentially, or image of the universe using that. And we can look back into uh, CMB, which is cosmic microwave background, which was the initial stage of the universe when Big Bang happened. So to be able to do that in astrophysics, and it's essentially boils down to the same set of things. Are you able to analyze the data? Are you able to gather data, clean it up, make sense of it? So underlying principles are very much similar. Even in quantum theory, right? Like when we explore it, it's like how this information behaves probabilistically, and it's the same models we use. Naive Bayes is a very probabilistic model that we use here. And for example, if we were to like predict if the Instagram message that we are getting, is it a spam or not, naive Bayes serves very decently in that domain as well. And similarly, we can have, like ocean predicted times of arrival, which we did in like Blue Yonder. That's also a probabilistic Bayesian model. And similarly, we use these Bayesian models sometimes in astrophysics to ascertain, different galaxy structures and stuff like that. So pattern recognition, distributed systems, and embracing this ambiguity, that's been the common thread. And these disciplines, essentially uh, taught me to model these, kind of complex systems with the limited data, whether it's a quasar, it's an astrophysics term for a rotating star, a qubit, a quantum bit, or a customer in case of our industry.
Wonderfully explained, sir. Let's stir the AI pot a little. When we look at open source models like Llama and Mistral versus the closed models like GPT-4, is this like Rancho versus Virus? So, for the context, Rancho represents the open, curious, experimental spirit, while Virus is precise, powerful, and extremely well funded. In your view, can these Rancho style open models realistically compete with virus like closed models in real world business environments?
Oh, I really admired the analogy there for sure. That's one of my favorite movies of all times. Um, well, if they can, they can compete, I would say they already are. We have worked with like Llama, we have worked with Bard, we have worked with GPT. Uh, and Llama 3, for example, and Mistral, they are incredibly performant on retrieval, summarization, and internal workflows, especially if you fine tune them, Uh, and I've used these open models, in production pipelines where cost and control mattered more than slight improvements in the output quality or latency. That said, closed models, like GPT-4, they are really effective still for the production use cases. For example, like we sometimes go with GPT-4, over Llama. But that again, like depends on the use case specifically. Like if we want to, spend that much on a model, or if we want to use something open source, if we are fine with latency, or if the cost is, like much more of importance there. So, but yes, the closed models like GPT-4, like they are leading in, like stuff like news on safety and reasoning for sure, as of right now. So if let's say you're building consumer facing apps or with a brand risk, of course you're going to go with something which is more reliable like GPT. But for internal tools like, analytics assistants or task specific agents, open source is punching well above its weight. So it's doing pretty well, I'd say.
Yes, sir. So, what are the key skills that you believe are non negotiable for freshers trying to enter top tech companies in 2025?
Ooh, uh, that's a that's a good question, and honestly, that comes with a liability. Like if I say something, I hope nobody gets back to me saying that you told me to study this and I did, and nothing's happening. But okay, kidding aside, I think at the end of the day, the basics still remain the same, right? Like I would say, focusing on structured problem solving. Uh, the most important thing, honestly, the one thing that dreads me even right now and used to dread me when I was back in Thapar as well, that's like data structures and algorithms. Uh, whenever I have to interview, I still have to open the lead code, start the two some problem again, the basic ones, and then go through with the medium and hard ones. But yeah, I would say like yes, that structured problem solving is any day, the bread and butter of our industry. Um, and The reason is because like it teaches us, the clarity under constraints. And a lot of problem solving is essentially that, like it's not about, just one technology. Like technologies come and go, like I don't think so. I have had or seen .NET being relevant, in so many years. I mean, a lot of industries might still be using it, but I haven't like had to touch it, in a lot of scenarios. Java is still relevant, but Python took over. So when I started my journey, right, like I didn't know Python, I didn't know like Java is good. I knew .NET somehow. Um, but as we go along, like if we focus on problem solving, these technologies we can always, learn on the go. If we have our basics clear, they all come around the similar basic concepts, right? I would highly recommend, creating some clean GitHub projects, create a real world repo, and have it with an academic, course. Uh, it not just helps, to be visible in terms of, like what kind of work we are doing, but it also helps us to like reflect back and see like how much we have grown over a period of time. Um, Data literacy is another one, like knowing basic SQL, NumPy, model debugging, like how that happens. And then of course, at the end of the day, if we can get our hands on with LLM APIs, that's great. A lot of projects out there, and at the end of the day, of course, it all comes along with having basic soft skills, positive attitude, a problem solving approach. And like sometimes we tend to kind of compete with others, and of course there is a competition, but I think like more than that, like if we focus on essentially just learning and knowing like, if I actually know this concept or not. And I'm not going to explain it, but there's like one of the things that has helped me a lot. It's called Feynman's learning technique. uh, so I think like everybody should adopt that. So it's a competition of yourself with your own. If you know something more today than yesterday, I think you're on the course of getting things done. Just be positive, know your stuff, learn, you know, and have that problem solving abilities.
Noted, sir. What's the difference between a good resume and a great one in your view?
Well, I would say great resumes, they're like they quantify, contextualize, and they align with the outcomes, specifically. uh, Clear and well-tailored resume. I mean, you don't need to put a lot of stuff on your resume. You just need to put like impactful stuff on your resume. Let's say I created a model, right? Like even if it was a tree-based model, but if it achieved, let's say, a reduction in a cost of 20%, that's way more effective than if I created uh, a RAG agent which didn't serve any purpose. So contextuality of it matters a lot. Quantifiableness matters a lot in a resume. And aligning it with the outcomes specific, I would say that makes a difference between, a good and a great resume, perhaps.
Okay, sir. Someone's torn between campus placements and a master's degree. And by someone, I refer to myself. How should they decode this dilemma besides flipping a coin or asking ChatGPT?
uh, uh, I would say no, like I was in a similar situation, like back in 2014. I was applying at that time for my PhD in, physics. And at the same time, I wasn't sure if I'm going to be able to get it. I just had like one research publication. Um, but somehow I thought like the research work that I did was cited by NASA, so I might be able to get in at that time. But one thing I realized at that time was like these two are not very different in essence because when you're applying for your master's degree, right? Like what matters more? Like you give GRE, you give TOEFL, right? Uh, and when you give GRE, so we still have that aptitude test over there, which honestly for me that was a blessing in disguise because I prepped up for GRE and TOEFL, but that helped me in prepping up for that aptitude test in our placements at that time. Uh, but I would highly recommend, like again, going back to the basics, like knowing your DSL goes. Because let's say even if you are not to take up a job there, let's say you get an offer, but you get an admit in masters and you prefer masters somehow, again, a personal call. Uh, and even when you come out here, like you're gonna be if you are not inclined towards academia, and even if you are inclined towards academia, I should rather say, you're still going to need those skills, right? You're still going to need DS algos at that time. You're still going to need good projects. So essentially, what you're doing right now in Thapar or like in undergrad, for anybody in their undergrad, these things are not just, going to be tied to you graduating from college, but these things are going to build you up like as a person, as an engineer over a period of time. So from my perspective, honestly, it's uh, it's definitely hard, dividing the time between two, like what you should focus on. Um, but prepping up, in essence, for aptitude would help you prep up, for GRE. Uh, TOEFL is English, and I think like we somehow do fine in that. Sometimes it's hard, of course, with the vocabulary. And believe me, I have never used these words after being here in last 10 years. Uh, but yeah, like definitely, I would still, even if you were not to sit in placements and still go for your masters, like I would still highly recommend doing, DSL goes, like focusing on the projects, learning it, in a way that you're actually enjoying it. So yeah, I think yeah, they're both the sides of the same coin, perhaps.
Yes, sir. So, do you think studying abroad gives an edge in terms of tech exposure, startup culture, or innovation mindset?
I can only like say for myself here, Noor, it definitely helped me. A lot of my friends, they came through directly from India, and they're doing great as well. But personally, if I were to do it all over again, I would still like, get my master's here. And the reason for that is it's not just about, knowing the stuff what we need to work in the job, but as an overall exposure. For example, like I would have never, gotten uh, or I haven't gotten a chance to work in machine learning and AI as much. I came to States in 2016. 2017 was the revolutionary year when the paper came out, Attention is All You Need by Google. That changed the entire landscape of AI. Being out here at that time, somehow, my university immediately picked that up, and my professor was like, "Do you want to work on this?" And I was like, yes, of course, I would love to. And my thesis was in machine learning in like large language models at that time in 2018. It had just come out like 1 year back. We had no idea how this works. We were still trying to understand the transformer architecture at that time. So those kind of advancements or your exposure to the upcoming tech is definitely something which helps when you're out here. And when you're being associated with the academic world, of course, you have the access to those papers, and more than that, like I worked on like quantum information processing here as well, following it up from Thapar. I wouldn't have gotten that chance again, having to work with School of Earth and Space Exploration here at ASU. I wouldn't have gotten those chances if I wouldn't have enrolled in masters, if I would have straight away come out here. I mean, again, like that's something you can still explore, once you're out here. But in that case, you would only pursue what you know. So being out here studying essentially opens up the field to, like there are things we know, there are things we don't know, and there are things we don't know that we don't know, you know? So that third part, which I didn't even know that I didn't know, essentially was something that really expanded me being out here. And of course, culture is super nice. Uh, I definitely feel sometimes, especially in the workplace as well, people like who have studied here, and this might be controversial perhaps, but I see like sometimes, a lot of people like micromanaging and all, and it comes from both sides, but the percentage is lesser, somehow from people who have kind of studied here. But then again, that's my experience. It could not be entirely true. But yeah, I think it definitely helps. It helps to be out here, being a part of the research, being a part of these schools. And if you want to, work on interdisciplinary fields, it gives you more opportunities. It's expensive. It's worth the risk though.
Okay, sir. If you were launching a startup in AI or quantum tomorrow, what's one painful, weird, or completely underhyped problem you'd solve first?
Uh, there are a lot of problems that need to be solved still. Now, when you're doing a startup, like there are two ways to go about it, right? Like either you identify a problem and solve it, or you start as a consulting. You help out industries with their existing problems, and then you find a niche where you feel you can actually build up a product. So it could be either product based or service based, essentially. So that's the case of AI for sure. In the quantum realm right now, we are still working in quantum machine learning. China recently, a couple of days before only, they built up a 73 qubit quantum computer where they were able to disrupt the RSA encryption, which is the hardest one to break, which is like an NP hard problem, like essentially. So if I were to do a startup like right now, I would say I might start up with a service-based approach where identifying the current industry problems and building custom solutions for them. And then in the domain of that, if you're able to identify some product which can be like useful and generalized along the way, then of course I would definitely go into that. As a matter of fact, we did actually start up it's not a company, but an organization. It's called Gammas.ai, and which essentially works towards, generalizing a lot of AI concepts, like how to build up RAG agents, for your different use cases, how to analyze like basic problems in terms of AI, like how to essentially, perform uh, predictive and prescriptive analytics in essence. But in case of quantum computing, I think well, I would wait for a quantum computer to be more efficient and come through, but a lot of quantum algorithms that would come along to be built up alongside, definitely quantum languages would be one field where I would be like looking into in that case.
Okay, sir. You judged over 120 projects at Innovate 2025. What patterns did you observe among the most successful ones?
Uh, I would say the best ones had three things. A real world problem, a simplicity of user experience, and a justified use of AI. Like essentially three things. And this is like one thing which really inspires me. Essentially, I judged actually Innovate 2025, which was organized by Thapar as well. And then there was a hackathon by Washington University. And then I was a mentor here at UC Berkeley. But the kind of projects that I saw in Innovate 2025 in Washington State University, that was a lot of Indian teams participated in that. A lot of teams from medicine participated in that, and the adoption of AI there, seeing it's just unbelievable. And that's why I said like Indian developers, they're like fast-paced learners. Like they solve problems really well and really quick. A lot of times in the projects, of course, we could see that they're not as much well refined, but then again, the very approach of them, trying to use the most state-of-the-art models in deep learning and machine learning. It was just impeccable, to be honest. I remember like there was this one project that used image embeddings to detect the counterfeit products, and I remember thinking to myself, like, it's not just cool, it has a clear ROI, and it was demo ready. I hope they make something out of it, to be honest. But yeah, like I would say the teams collaborated really well, divided work very smartly, consistently, and definitely some really amazing insights from those hackathons for sure.
Okay, sir. What's one productivity hack or daily habit that's had a disproportionate impact on your career?
Uh, I would say there's this book I read. It was called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and this was back in 2014. Um, I remember I was in Thapar. I was trying to do this. I started Society, Computer Society of India, Thapar chapter. Then I had, my placements and preparation for my master's or PhD. Uh, and in that, actually, there was this one part because I'm still like trying to learn that, I wouldn't say I'm great at it or anything. Like, it's work in progress. But time management has been one of the biggest problems for me in my life, considering, you have to kind of allocate it to everything. Um, but there was this section, this one habit which that author actually, I forgot the author of like Habits of Highly Effective People. Um, I'm sorry, it's kind of hard, but it was essentially dividing your time into four quadrants. Important and urgent, important, not important, urgent, and not urgent. And then picking up things in the important, urgent quadrant first, and then moving on to not important but urgent, and then you essentially filter down the things which really don't need your time. And that's like the honestly, from my perspective, the only most important thing we have in life is our time, which is again a very quantifiable, quantity limited resource. Um, so I would say working on that part definitely helped me to manage a lot of things alongside.
Okay, sir. Let's talk about mental health for a second. When you are working on bleeding edge tech, do you ever get hit by the imposter syndrome? So, for the viewers, imposter syndrome is the situation where you start doubting your own skills and successes.
Yes, 100%. Yes. Um, and not just like while working with the cutting edge tech. I remember even in my masters or before even trying to come here. Um, Even in Thapar, a lot of times before my placements, I used to always ponder, right? Like if I'm good enough, if I actually know stuff or not. But that's the interesting part to it, right? Like uh our brain works in a very interesting way. Being at ASU after my master's, I did an applied master's in applied psychology. It was online. Just we were like studying some data sets, and uh, me and my friends at the research group, we just thought like let's enroll into it. Let's see like how it works. And there was this one thing that really popped out in that was, the more we study, the more we start to learn stuff, we realize how much more we don't know. So having an imposter syndrome, in essence, is a good thing. Um, and like sometimes we have also seen, the loudest people are the ones with, sometimes not so much of depth, but at the same time, uh, a lot of people who actually know stuff, they do suffer, like with the imposter syndrome. Um, Again, not very academic statement or nothing of generalization. Some people are really good, with their words and a lot of depth. But for me, I would say personally, yes, I do face that. I have seen my friends facing that too. Uh, we tend to go into that retrospective, but it essentially is, realizing that third part of the brain that we were initially just touching base on, things we know, things we don't know, things that we don't know that we don't know. And once those things come into the perspective, our list of don't knows increase. And the only way to do that is by essentially exploring more things. And the more you now know that you don't know, it's definitely going to create a, an imposter syndrome. It's gonna like, freak you out. Like, my gosh, like, there's so much more to actually do. But that's I guess, a part and parcel of the process, especially in our industry. There's always going to be new tech coming up. There's always going to be so much more to learn. Uh, it is overwhelming and intimidating at times, but the good part is it never feels boring. There's always new stuff to do.
Yes, sir. Moving on to the last question of this podcast. Imagine you could DM your 21-year-old self right out of college. What's one brutally honest piece of advice you'd send?
Oh, I have a lot. uh, well, if I were to pick one, right, like I would say, don't optimize for titles. Optimize for skills and stories. Explore relentlessly. Say yes to like hard things, um, and trust that your calling would make sense someday, even if it does not right now. I would definitely tell my old self about ikigai, and yeah, just don't wait. Don't wait to be ready. I mean, you are ready. You already got this. It's the journey. At the end of the day, the sooner you embark that upon, the sooner you start to feel closer to the destination. So email that professor, the one that you've been waiting for. DM that founder, the one that you've been waiting for. Just don't wait. Get onto it.
That was so interesting, sir. This
Thank you.
was so insightful. I mean, if podcasts earned a college credit, this episode would be a full elective. A huge thank you to Mr. Satish Bhambri for sharing not just knowledge but perspective, from AI trends and career advice to some much needed wisdom for this generation of techies. Sir, it was genuinely a privilege to learn from you today. To everyone listening, if today's episode made you laugh, think, or seriously question your CGPA's worth, do us a favor and share it with a friend who needs to hear this too. And remember, stay curious, stay caffeinated. Until next time, this is Noor signing off before the algorithm gets bored. Thank you. So, would you like to say something for the viewers?
No, thank you. Thank you for having this. Great questions. Definitely made me reflect. Uh, if by any how any of my perspectives or opinions are offensive to someone, then I do apologize. But it's an honest conversation that I've had my experiences with my journey. So thank you for having me here. It's an honor.
Thank you so much, sir.